Fucking a UVTV motherfucker. I'm gonna kick spiritual ass and do this for my people. On God. Nigga for Featherman. Yeah, today I'm gonna be talking about how Horus is the Egyptians' allegory for the sun's travel across the sky. So the same way how they be calling it like the high flying one, it's or it being depicted as like a falcon and stuff like that. A falcon is just a bird of prey. From it being a bird of prey, it having wings is able to see things above. The same way like what I'm saying, like an eagle is able to fly but fly above the horizon in some way, shape, and form, right? And it's more in the atmosphere in the sky and stuff like that. So it's over to oversee these things. So it's a whole entire allegory, right? Which is why it'd be like a falcon head and like a human vessel, human body. This is just a thought, idea, or like a vision or a principle or virtue based upon it. The Egyptians, from their perspective of how they look at like the sun and stuff like that, really when it comes to the hieroglyphics just in general, it's not even like some shit where it's like, oh, these motherfuckers were talking a certain language and stuff like that. No, they were trying to understand and illustrate these different images and make up different allegories and like mythological type of stories and stuff like that, like how like Horus versus Set and stuff like that. They're trying to understand the realm of reality that we in right now based upon our human comprehension and shit like that. They're trying to understand us being on Earth and God's body in the third dimension and shit like that. That, like, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to understand the physical reality surrounding the environment that they're in, and they were just using those things to act out those characteristics. And they created like from an outside perspective, it looked like, oh, these motherfuckers call these things God and stuff like that, right? But like a lot of these, like a lot of these people who be constructing like these worldviews and stuff like that based upon like you know what I'm saying, like England men and like Christopher Columbus and all that type shit, when they was like interpreting these things and learning about these things and these ancient texts and like these pyramid texts and all these type things and things that like was like different ancient things that were going on during that time, during that civilization, and then trying to make it make sense in today's context and stuff like that. You don't even know the creative space they was in when they cultivated that, you know what I'm saying, like that culture or like that hieroglyphic and that image and stuff like that. You talking about it after the fact. You know what I'm saying? You just talking about the creation from the viewpoint of like a fan type shit. Like you don't know the creative process or the mentality it was in when it was doing that, but you're just talking about the after effects when you learn about that culture and you being a fan of it when you consume that music, you know what I'm saying, like consume like that music or like that art or like that imagery. You made your own interpretation, but you don't even know the original interpretation type shit of what mind state it was in to even make that piece of imagery or art or allegory or like folklore or whatever. So in today's context, from the way these people, when they start like understanding it and translating what the fuck they think they was talking about in English when it comes to these hieroglyphics and stuff like that, they was like, oh, they was calling these different entities and stuff like that, like, you know what I'm saying, like Anubis or like Hades or goddamn like Set or like Horus or like Ra, and they'll be looking at these things like, oh, these was like they deities of like worship or whatever and stuff like that, when they didn't even look at those deities as God type shit from their perspective. They were just making a whole bunch of different allegories and folklore and imagery to try to understand the physical realm in some way, shape, and form, and the importance of like the skies and the atmosphere and the wind blowing in a certain direction, and trying to cultivate a different, like a certain type of culture and civilization, and create their own way of interpreting it and making, you know what I'm saying, like making sense of like how they want to live their life and all that type stuff. That was, and a lot of that was going on in that geographical region in that sun pocket, aka in Egypt, and you know what I'm saying, like the pyramids and all that type shit, and like how they wanted to build and construct and make that way of life and that culture and all that type stuff, and then everything else based upon the interpretation came after the fact. So it's like when it comes to the hieroglyphics and motherfuckers trying to understand what the fuck they saying, a lot of that shit you never gonna know what the fuck you like, unless you those people, you ain't never gonna know what the fuck they was talking about. Type shit. Like you can kind of like piece it together and stuff like that, but you starting it from the wrong starting point. You looking at it like a language that we have to interpret and figure out what the fuck they was saying. When in like in day point of view, it was even like a language type shit. Like they wasn't trying to make words or nothing like that. They trying to make imagery to try to understand. You know what I'm saying? They're like illustrated. It's the same way how you have like a music motherfucker or a painter or something like that, or like a sculptor and shit like that, and then they be like, oh, what the fuck, like, oh, why did you make this art? Like, what does this mean? Like, why did you illustrate this? Because of this, then the third, and then like them type of artists where it be like, oh, it's up to interpretation type shit. It's like one of those type things for the most part. So if that art is even present for you to understand of the original starting point of why they wanted, of like why they illustrated or created it in that way when it comes to that imagery, you always gonna start from the wrong starting point. Oh, it could have meant this, it could have meant that, it could have meant this, it could have been that. But like, you're not those people who made that shit in the first place. So it's like you always gonna get that shit wrong. You always gonna look at it from like a fan point of view. Because you wasn't there to cultivate that thing in the first place. So that's where, like, down the line, it started turning into, oh, okay, they looked at these things, these imagery, like, you know what I'm saying, this folklore, all this type shit, like gods, like some deities they supposed to worship and shit like that. When, like, half of that shit wasn't even that. It's just some created interpretation and worldview that people project onto other people. Like when you look that shit up on Google and Wikipedia and stuff like that, and they try to like dictate how you supposed to interpret what that is type shit, and it's only just that. So a lot of people start getting lost into like the flesh and like the physical representations and like the technology or the tools that we have that we done created, and they like, oh, these motherfuckers be believing in this and they be sacrificing, motherfuckers be doing this, and this what they talk about in they folklore and stuff like that. Oh, these were actually living things because this and the third. No, a lot of it is just allegories of like metaphysics of like things of the mind and stuff like that, and what would be a better way of how to live life. And from us, like from them having a better way of living life, is going to construct a better space. It's going to construct a better productivity and like creativity and imagination, or a better dream or a better outlook, you know what I'm saying, that they can expand into and condense into a mentality, aka have a better principle, better value, better virtue and stuff like that of how to live. And then it starts to be condensed into the physical. Oh, we actually gonna act this out in the physical and stuff like that. So they were just trying to be walking emanations of the star, the main star, the sun and stuff like that. And then the reflection of that will be like the moon and stuff like that. That's why a lot of these allegories and stuff like that, when it comes to Horus and Ra, a lot of these Egyptian gods and deities and stuff like that, it get misconstrued for one. And then two, niggas be getting lost into the flesh and the physical representation. So they thinking like, oh, those motherfuckers who actually was in the physical with fucking bird head beaks and shit like that, and Anubis staff and all that type shit, when it's just an allegory for things of the type of vision they had in that geographical location of how to cultivate and their interpretation of the atmosphere, the sun and the moon, the skies, the clouds condensing, nighttime, all that type shit. Like, yeah. So this is why when it comes to Horus, they'll call Horus like the high flying one and shit like that, and it was depicted as like a falcon, because a falcon is a bird of prey, typically catching prey by diving on it from above, and not and then look, it'll be prey, so P-R-E-Y. But the way how people would interpret it after the fact, they'd be like, oh, they be praying towards it, aka like P-R-A-Y instead of P-R-E-Y, they'll be P-R-A-Y, the way like some type of colonist or someone who's not from that culture, so like an Asian or like some European motherfucker, they look at it and look at it like, oh, these motherfuckers be looking at these things like they deities, but only y'all be looking at deities like they God, when God got nothing to do with all possibilities. No, they just making up a creative allegory of how to look at life, and they use that imagery to basically have a better outlook of how to look at it from an overall perspective. So that's why they made it, the falcon, a bird of prey, and something that flies in the sky and stuff like that. Oh, what's something more broad? The sky, the atmosphere, the sphere of most, the world at most, and stuff like that. Oh, what's a better way that we can put ourselves in a broader mind state beyond just this humanistic vessel and stuff like that, that seems more divine or godly and stuff like that, so we can have a better way of living life in creation space while we in the physical in some way, shape, or form. So they was praying on it, P-R-E-Y. Oh, we're gonna pray on that vision, we're gonna pray on that thought, we're gonna pray on that feeling, we're gonna pray on that emotion, we're gonna pray on that goal, that dream, to make it happen. Oh, we're gonna attack that thing until it gets mutated and manifested and materialized in so much shape and form of how we see that vision. For the most part, it's just manifesting and materializing for the most part. So similar to like a falcon being a bird of prey, catching its prey by diving on it from above. Oh, we're gonna have a broader or higher or something that's above the horizon, right? And we're gonna swoop down and attack that thing, that and from us attacking that thing, we're like attacking the flesh and stuff like that. AK, we're not trying to depend on the fleshly fluid. We ain't trying to get lost into the physical realm and shit like that. Oh, we gonna make it more spiritual in so much shape or form. AK, we're trying to make an overall space that's a better cultivation space, which is a better parameter or better parameter, like area, like productivity, creativity, something that's gonna get the blood flowing, adrenaline, something that's gonna make us gassed up, something that's gonna make us inspired and stuff like that, we're trying to prey on that. We're trying to attack that so we can stay being above the horizon, not below the horizon, aka something of the flesh and something that's dead. But I'm gonna talk about that in like I'm gonna talk about that the minute we start getting into like the story of like Horus and like Seth and all that type shit. But like, hold on. So a lot of stuff when y'all be looking at it like above, right, or like higher, it's like it's not like, oh, actually like above or actually like higher. Just replace those words with like broad. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna have a broader space, a broader perimeter, a broader mind. You're expanding your mind in so much shape of form. So when they start talking about above the horizon, the same way how it's daytime and shit like that, right? Doing things above the horizon, oh, it's daytime. Oh, this is the time to, you know what I'm saying, go out in life and be doing shit. And then when the sun rotate on its axis and stuff like that, and then we go through the sunset and shit like that when it's below the horizon, aka nighttime. Okay, that's the time you're supposed to recuperate. Oh, that's the time we're supposed to go indoors and shit like that, and recuperate and regenerate before that new day start to come around and stuff like that. And it's showing different sun pockets from fucking 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So Aries to Virgo and shit like that, and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Libra to motherfucking Pisces and stuff like that. It's just showing different sun pockets, and it changes itself every 2 hours. So the same way with astrology and stuff like that, every 2 hours. So like 6 a.m. to goddamn 8 p.m. is Aries, and then 8 a.m. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. is Aries, and then 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Taurus, and 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. so like noon it's like Gemini, and then 12 to 2 is Cancer and all that type shit. It's like trying to stay above the horizon during those times, in the same way how those are like springtime type signs, like I just said. So like 6 a.m. to fucking 2 p.m. and stuff like that. Not 2 p.m. 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. so to noon. So fucking Aries to Gemini and stuff like that, those are springtime type signs. So that's a birth of a new day. That's when the sun starts to rise and stuff like that. So when the sun starts to rise, aka that celestial body, that star, that's the time of the day where if we want to play that out in the physical, oh, that's when time, oh, niggas want to work out. That's the time niggas be getting up for work and stuff like that. That's the time when niggas start, you know what I'm saying, doing whatever they have to do when it comes to how they live their life. So their job, their creativity, getting their imagination started up, their morning day. They get their coffee. They you know what I'm saying? They go to Starbucks, they go to Dunkin' Donuts. They starting to wake up and all that type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's the same process, and that's why during Virgo time, so like fucking like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and shit like that, aka when kids be coming back from school and like rush hour and all that type shit. So and all that like traffic and stuff like that, because niggas be working 9 to 5s and shit like that, and they want to go back home and all that type stuff. Like a lot of people in government, they do be knowing this shit, and they constructing society and stuff like that in that way, because they be learning from these ancient motherfuckers and these other civilizations and these old practices, and trying to do that in a new way. But they just want to be the main star players and controllers of what the fuck that look like in America and stuff like that right now. For the most part. But yeah, I'm just trying to make it relative. Like I'm trying to make it make sense. So, oh, a lot of this shit ain't pseudo, and a lot of this shit ain't just like, oh, okay, that was just like some old civilization type thing of how it was making sense of life, but they ain't practicing and playing that shit out now. No, it's still being played out now. It's just different terminology and different words in a different surrounding environment and circumstance, and a different system. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like the 24-hour time format and different time zones and shit like that. It's like, bro, like they still doing it now. They just took that template in a sense. Like I'm not saying like Africans or Egyptians were the only motherfuckers that was doing that. A lot of people, when it comes to different cultures and civilizations, all that type shit, and geographical locations, they always doing the same thing. That's why there's so many different religions in a sense, aka a group of people, right? Like the same way how y'all be looking at cults, because I'll be looking at all religion motherfuckers like cults, because it's just a religion. So it's a real religion that they be relying on based upon their beliefs and what the fuck they want to worship and believe in some way, shape, or form, and how they look at life, and the way how they look at all possibilities, which is the overall God. So that's why I be looking at it like, oh, they have their own specific version of God, but they be looking at God like a deity, when the overall God don't even give a fuck about that. But in a sense, right, from their comprehension all the way down to, like, you know what I'm saying, like Abrahamic, Christian, Muslim, whatever and stuff like that, in a sense, with their personal relationship with all possibilities, aka the overall God, they try to use that religion to make sense out of life and their own principles and their ethic, ethical ways of going about things and the moral compass and all that type stuff. Like in a sense, right? Even if you did want to be into that religion, that's how you look at being spiritual. That's what you look at as, oh, this is how I'm gonna get to all possibilities, and this is how I'm gonna live my life by adhering to this shape and format spectrum of how to what I got basically like shown or brought up in and stuff like that. Like yeah. So it's the same way how um like what would be a good example of that? It's the same way how like a lot of urban black people in America, especially in the South, where they grew up under the Bible Belt and they grew up very Christian, like regardless of the denominations and the deities, the specific lords and deities, but right based upon the denomination and that interpretation, aka like Baptist or like Methodist or Catholicism and all that type shit. Regardless of that annotation, that can of worms, and that system and that goddamn world tree of how they want to dictate and look at the world and stuff like that. That's how they look at all possibilities. That's how they look at gods. It's just a specific version and interpretation of what that is. Now when it started getting too self-projecting, and when it started turning into, oh, who's the creator of like that mentality, that intellectual property, that's a whole different goddamn story. But when it comes to the Egyptians and shit like that, this is just how they looked at it from their perspective. So I'll be looking at it like, oh, all these different religions have a different space or different culture of how they look at all possibilities in God, and this is just the Egyptian interpretation of what the fuck that is. So at that point, you can't even call that shit religion. And if you start calling it religion, you're just trying to make it a religion out of it, but it's not them people calling that shit religion. You're just trying to make a religion out of how they looked at the world, how they looked at life type shit. So that's why when it comes to Horus and them looking at it as the ruling pharaoh and shit like that, they looked at that like during that time, that pharaoh would be like that Egyptian monarch. That'll be like the ruler. So this is the leader, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is the star player. This is the leader. This is the main nigga we're gonna look at as like, oh, he's gonna help govern. He's gonna help bring us together as a collective. He's the most observant. He's the most creative. He's the most productive. He's the most inspiring, that we want to put him into that position to where it's like, okay, you're the face, you represent us and stuff like that. So that's why when it comes to different pharaohs in Africa in general, especially when it came to Egypt, and whoever was the ruler or the president or the dictator at that time, whatever the fuck you want to call it, they'll be like, oh, this motherfucker took up the role of like Horus. This motherfucker took up the role of Osiris and like this god and this deity and stuff like that, because they looked at them as like the living representation, kind of like Jesus in a way. Like, oh, we look at this nigga as the walking representation, walking Jesus of what the fuck we look at as all possibilities, aka God, and we just gave it like a name and title, like Horus or Osiris and stuff like that. Like, oh, this motherfucker, no matter the transitions and the cycles and the transformations, and no matter what his way, oh, this motherfucker know how to lead charge, put himself first, and then show us a broader direction of where to go. And he ain't lost into the flesh, and he ain't lost into ego. He's more of service than being self-serving in a sense. And based upon those natural transitions and shit like that, he know how to come back. So then it's gonna start turning to that conversation about reincarnation and stuff like that. But it means like, oh, this motherfucker is able to ground himself. He's able to come back. He's not gonna get too lost into like a certain state of being type shit. You know what I'm saying? He ain't gonna get too spiritual. He ain't gonna get too lost into a certain mentality. He ain't gonna get too lost in the flesh. He's able to basically balance all three type shit, like balance all different transitions. And those different transitions, you could look at that as like spring, summer, fall, winter time and shit like that. But that's a whole different fucking video type shit. So that's why during the daytime, aka above the horizon, they'll look at their pharaohs like Horus, and then below the horizon they'll look at like look at like Osiris and death and shit like that, right? So Osiris is just a fixated portion of the death period. So look at that as like fall time, or look at that as like Libra through Sagittarius and shit like that. And the fixated portion of that is like Scorpio, and then Scorpio represents being fixated, adamant, and stubborn in your own way when it comes to dealing with the emotions and feelings, when it comes to the behind the scenes realm, the dark realm, and that could turn to alternative motives or manipulation or like gaslighting or like things that are unseen, the unseen realm, the hidden realm, the subconscious realm. But that could also turn into deep passion, willpower, motivation, and ambitions and intentions and shit like that. So from it being deeply rooted, it's gonna automatically start going to the flesh because it's like more deep rooted. Because when you have like some type of ambition and stuff like that, and the things that make you excited and inspired and blood flow and all that type shit, and get that adrenaline pumping, that's more like in a creative type of space. So it's gonna be more spiritual. But if it's like deep, like you make it deep, like, oh, it's deep to you. You know what I'm saying? Like it resonates with your ass deeply. It's gonna be so much to the point to where, oh, I want to actually live this out in the physical in some way, shape, or form. That's why I made the allegory of like, oh, springtime, summertime, fall time, and wintertime. So it's just, my fault. So it's like space, time, and matter, or creating something and then it mutating and then it going through like a death, and then you recuperating that energy. So it's like birth would be like springtime, and then life will be like summertime, and death will be like the fall time. So it's starting to die off and deteriorate, and then wintertime will be like rebirth or like renewal or stuff like that. So you're trying to find a new way to go back into springtime to spring something off and be born into existence again type shit. So a lot of these different things are just allegories, the same way how you be looking at the 360 wheel or the goddamn zodiac signs and the different houses and stuff like that. AKA, it's just different sun transition, different sun pockets above the horizon based upon the Horus perspective. And then Horus is just going through those different houses, those different pockets. So from Aries to Pisces, or the first through the 12th house and shit like that. And they just calling it different names and terminologies from it going into those different pockets and transitions. It's just the above the horizon version of that would be like Horus. Now they do have different names for the below the horizon, because they'll be like Horus of the two horizons, so above and below the horizon, and that'll be like Horathi. I forgot how you say that shit. You can look that shit up. It's like Horusathi or some shit like that. So it's embodying the eastern horizon, aka the birth, aka the rise, aka the sunrise, aka Aries through Gemini, and the life portion of that will be goddamn Cancer through Virgo, and then the death portion, the western horizon. So when the sun is starting to set and shit like that, that'll be Libra through Sagittarius. And then when it's completely that, it's like darkness and shit like that. And you see the moon, and it's like nighttime and all that type stuff, based upon the Earth axis just rotating, and we just not in that sun pocket no more. AKA it's nighttime, and it's in the sun to move to a different geographical location where it's actually shining and emitting that light. That'll be goddamn Capricorn through Pisces and shit like that. So like 12, like, you know what I'm saying, like midnight, like 12 a.m. and shit like that. Like, yeah, like 12 to 6 a.m. 12 to 4 a.m. really. But yeah. So that's why they'll be making up like stories, like when it comes to like Horus, who's told by Isis. Isis just means like the moon goddess and stuff like that, to protect the people of Egypt from Set. Set will be like the sunset, or the god of the desert, like the who had killed Horus' father, Osiris and shit like that. So from Horus having like those battles with Set and shit like that to avenge his father's light. So the thing that came before him, so the ancestor, the predecessor type shit, and then Set will be like the lord of like the red land, the desert, aka something that got dried up and deserted and is dead. So that'll be below the horizon, the same way how you look at the sunset and shit like that. And then above the horizon, aka Horus role as the lord of the black land, or the fertile land. The fertile land will be like spring and summertime. You know, you get like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all they saying is them showing the conflicting battles between Horus above the horizon and then Set below the horizon and shit like that. So the sun cycle and transitions and shit like that. So the fertile land is when the sun can make these things grow, and then the goddamn the red lands will be like the deserted land. So when that shit is dead, or the sun ain't there no more, and it's just darkness and you can't see shit. So it's an accumulation of that light. It's just, you know what I'm saying, you can't see shit. And it go based upon the behind the scenes realm, and then above the horizon will be shit you can see for the most part. So it's basically like a big ass allegory for the sun's travel across the sky, or what motherfuckers be calling like the winged sun and shit like that. So they trying to be fly like the atmosphere. We're trying to be something more broad than this fleshly fluid and shit like that. Like, we still gonna come back in the physical in some shape or form, but we're trying to make some shape and form that's more fly. We trying to make a shape and form to be more dragon-like. We trying to make a shape and form to where, oh, we can be in God's home. We can be in the heavens. We can be like a celestial body, so like the sun and the moon and shit like that. We can, you know what I'm saying? We can be more divine. We can be something more broad that's beyond a human and shit like that. And then it's gonna start bringing new species down here and stuff like that. They don't want you to look at it like that, but that's all we doing is mutating and evolving. That's the true evolution and shit like that. That's the true evolution. They really want to like dictate and take control over. But this is why at the same time motherfuckers keep coming back into human bodies and animals that already done existed and shit like that, and there's no new species and stuff like that, because they want to put you in a certain worldview from an overall perspective, and you get lost into the flesh, aka you get lost into the word, aka you get lost into a certain thought, you get lost into a certain vision of what a man created, humanity created, which is why you keep coming back as a human. And like it'd be harder for motherfuckers to have a better comprehension or a better spiritual outlook of how to look at some shit, because you still lost into the flesh type shit. You ain't creating your own way to look at it. You ain't trying to expand your mind, expand the horizons, create your own creativity, productivity, and all that type shit. Get gassed up in adrenaline of what makes you inspired, aka intuition, inner spiral, and stuff like that, and expand that. You get lost into the nutsack of someone else's mentality based upon the program and the intellectual property that they self-projected onto you to how you want to look at the world. But considering you even sentient right now, and you even have your own mind, shows that's the thing you've been doing. You wouldn't even be in no human vessel right now if you wasn't doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't be sentient right now and movable or have your own mind if you wasn't doing that. It's like they trying to take you away from doing that to create your own way of doing it and your own little mental process, so you can get lost into their way of doing it. When, you know what I'm saying, like from an overall godly perspective and shit like that, that's some bitch ass nigga shit. That's some hater shit. So like, yeah, like you just gonna get rejected type shit. Like being more and more into that mentality and shit like that. It's like a hidden enemy type shit. So it kind of turn y'all into like judgmental hidden hater ass motherfuckers and shit. Which is why like it's all the way down to like them making laws in America and shit like that. But it's like you're going against godly laws, because it's like you ain't even making it so motherfuckers have their own way of going about life and their own little culture, their own little pocket of how they want to run society. And you want to make it like, oh, okay, y'all can only do that, but under our template. So under our forefathers, George Washington and the presidents and shit like that. Y'all can't make no new shit that's for the people and actually help people for real. We're going to make some Democratic, Republican, two wings for one big ass bird. Okay, we just going to make some whole systematic diaphragm of how to run this shit. You can't make your own self-running government in your own little pocket in a certain area and stuff like that. Oh, nah, we want to make it like an absolute monarchy type shit. Like, So really, in a nutshell, they just taking that ancient text or that ancient civilization of their culture and spirituality and stuff like that, of what they was doing in Egypt and their interpretation, and they just trying to be that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like they like throwing their rocket hot in their hand type shit the minute you try to do it. If you try to do that and stuff like that, they're gonna throw a narrative on you. They're gonna throw sobs on you. They're gonna make you look like conspiracy theories. They're gonna make you look like you crazy. They're gonna block it. They try to block your creativity or block your imagination or block your dream or block your you know what I'm saying? Like whatever goal when it comes to doing some shit like that, and you can only do it into their curriculum or their institutions or their way of going about it for the most part. You have to do that first. You have to be in their program first. You can't make up your own program. They're gonna start, you know what I'm saying? They just gonna make, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna make up a whole espionage and all type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be like some feds watching type shit, like dead ass. It's dead ass gonna be like some feds watching type shit. It's gonna turn into like some oh yeah, they want us, they want you to snitch type shit. Like that's why they have the police in place and shit like that, to be like the military. In the military, just the global police. So they gonna be real military. I'm making up a side to make people into a certain emotion or mood or behavior to take in like fearmonger and program, so they don't try to have their own power, because you know what I'm saying, like they don't want you to have your own power. They want you to give your power away so they can rule it in some way, shape, or form, so they can control it, because they feel like they have a better outlook type shit. I'm not even trying to hate, for real. I'm not even trying to hate to try to say like, oh, they wrong for doing that. It's just I understand it from an overall perspective of why they doing that, for the most part. So like the minute you start understanding from that perspective, you don't even give a fuck about it. You just like, oh, okay, they're just trying to do that. I shouldn't even be giving a fuck about it. When you actually working with all possibilities and God and shit like that, you just gonna be more into the potentiality of being somebody and creating your own way of looking at it. And if someone try to block that shit, you gonna come back anyways. aka you gonna come back in the spirit. So even if you're not in this mind, aka light body, and you ain't in the physical no more, the minute you come back, you're gonna have a way broader way, way more creative way, way more imaginative way that we ain't never seen. That seems like some out of this world type of mentality and shit like that, because you didn't let that shit stop you for real. So all the way down to the Horus shit and the different transitions, and the walking emanation, the winged sun, use the walking representation of that pharaoh, of being that leader in a sense, that spiritual leader in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like that one of the star key players when it comes to that culture, that mentality, that individuality in a sense. So yeah, Horus is just an Egyptian's allegory of the sun travel across the sky, and how the Egyptians looked at it from their perspective, and like me giving you that knowledge and wisdom so you can apply that in your own life, because all these things from them trying to be like the celestial bodies in the sky and the atmosphere, and how they looked at the world, you can utilize that from their perspective, and you can create your own atmosphere, create your own world, your own sphere, and motherfuckers start revolving around you after a while, because you know how to be attractive based upon what you pay attention to, and from you paying attention to the right things, aka what's right for you, what's good for you, what's just and virtue, and some type of principality that makes sense for your moral compass and stuff like that. Motherfuckers gonna look at what you doing when it comes to your productivity, your creativity, and the space that you in, and try to understand, damn, what mentality is this motherfucker into to make him do that. And it's just gonna add onto your soul's purpose of what you endure, aka your individual spirit, your individual space, your individual creation. And motherfuckers gonna end up cosplaying you in some way, shape, and form. But you doing it from the spiritual realm. You ain't getting, you know what I'm saying? You're doing it from the spiritual realm. You ain't doing it from the physical or like the fleshly realm. It just gets condensed and created into, like, you know what I'm saying? Like manifestation and materializing. It just get materialized in that way. But you know what I'm saying? You're able to walk lightly as a spirit. So you're not having no emotional baggage. So a lot of times, the same way how we be looking at celebrities and shit like that, and y'all be calling them idols and icons and stuff like that, from them being themselves, that's what they doing. They probably don't look at it like that. They just look at it like, oh, I'm just famous, or I'm just a celebrity and shit like that. But that's essentially what they doing. Them being themselves on the highest level. So they take things lightly, so they don't get too rooted into a narrative or the word or a spectrum of how a motherfucker look at them. They look at it like, man, I'm a spectrum in itself. I'm a walking star, walking emanation, walking spectrum in itself of the sun and the moon and shit like that, celestial body and heavenly and stuff like that. And as long as I stay in that space of what the original purpose of why I did this in the first place, of what I feel like that's true to me, in my imagination, all that type shit, I don't give a damn what fucking illusion you try to throw on other motherfuckers to make motherfuckers not fuck with me, or some fear mongering shit or some type of program and shit like that. That comes after the fact. Nigga, I'm in a creator space y'all not in. I know how to be me on the highest level. Even if you kill me in the physical in some way, shape, and form, I'm gonna come back even more imaginative, even more creative and shit like that. So like, yeah. So from you not getting lost into no shape and form, because that's really what all your spirit is, no shape and form, and it's like a gas, a shapeless and formless gas that turns into a liquid, aka something that's, you know what I'm saying, fluid, and then it turns into a solid, so something that's physical and tangible that we can actually feel and touch and all that type shit, right? If from you not getting lost into one shape and form, you're gonna be able to create some type of adrenaline, some type of blood flow, some type of vision, some type of thought, some type of feeling that's out of that pocket, that's out of that original pocket it was in, and you're able to make a broader pocket and put it into a broader mind and condense that again, type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like from you not getting lost into one space or one pocket of time or one memory, you able to make a new way of looking at it, a new memory, and you able to keep expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting that over and over. So it's like yeah, like that's all they was trying to understand. That's all they was trying to do for real. Make it to the heavens, and then the heavens will be like the sky, will be like the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is just the sphere of reality at most, right? And for us being like that and being walking emanations of the sun and the moon and stuff like that, we're gonna able to bring God or all possibilities down here in a better way and better consciousness or better comprehension that's beyond just this human vessel and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? To make more species and to make more sentient beings and stuff like that, because you wouldn't be moving, you wouldn't be talking, you wouldn't have your own individuality, you wouldn't have your own mind if you wasn't already doing that. So that let you know how ancient humans is type shit. So it's like, yeah, at one point we was like cavemen and homo sapiens and shit like that, and we're like adjacent to like mammals. Okay, we could be into our animalistic natures and stuff like that, but we ain't like a lion, We like, you know what I'm saying? Like we like it's like we're not in the mentality of a lion type shit. Like we're not in the mentality of an alligator. We're something a little bit more broader than that, for the most part. So we can live amongst them, but we have enough to build our civilization and shit like that and cultivate and have a broader awareness than they do. It's the same way how when it comes to dogs and cats, we can make them as pets, but it's not that the other way around because we have more comprehension and conscious awareness than they do. So we're able to train them or domesticate them the way they can't do that to us, which is why we have fucking zoos and shit like that. So on some level, we have some type of broader conscious awareness than they do and comprehension skills or our broader thought pattern and stuff like that based upon the different realm of realities that we in and stuff like that. So the humans or mankind in general is a certain realm of reality, but then birds being a certain realm of reality, and alligators being a certain realm of reality, and falcons being a certain realm of reality. But humans are just an accumulation of all these different species and animals and stuff like that. And we was able to take all these different things and go through these different experiences and transitions, and we was able to make it into the mind state that we is right now to be the highest shaping form of what that is. And then we trying to be something beyond just that. So that's why when it comes to Horus and all these Egyptian deities and gods and stuff like that, and people who's in Africa interpreting these things, that's why they would make these different things be having animal heads and stuff like that, because they're like, oh, we're going to take that animalistic trait from us observing how this animal acts in certain environments and surroundings and environments, and we're trying to be that, but like do that in a broader scale for God though, like all possibilities, so we can make it possible to have a better pharaoh or a better monarch or a better leader, spiritual leader, a better way of cultivating and creating our culture and life in general, so we can do something beyond just what the fuck we doing right now type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it all just go based upon that, and any motherfucker who be trying to block that, that's something that's getting, you know what I'm saying, that's someone who getting lost into the flesh, and we gonna be able to come back from our spiritual lineage and family and stuff like that because we're in the overall space, so we ain't getting lost into something that happened after the fact, and we can come back again greater.